Okay, so I've drafted in, I hope, pretty good way. This will be something, I've never done it this way before, so I think this will be a good way of doing it because really, honestly, when you're creating websites, one of the hardest things is to get folks, because if you're not writing it yourself, is to give you content. So you get to use ChatGPT or some other AI tool of your choice to generate your content. But what that really means is you have to think about like your topic, what kinds of things. And I ended up spending quite a bit of time researching because the more I researched, the more I understood the topic, the better I could organize the content. And you definitely want to spend some time doing that. So in this video, I'll go over the structure of what I want you to create, the requirements for each of that. So just know that this work that you're doing, unlike the group work that we've been doing, is only submitting it to me. Okay, so in this case, we're using your private repos. So let me show you the structure that you will use for this. So in your private repo, at the same level you've been creating these other folders, create one called project, do it lowercase, no spaces, and then under project, create another folder and call it P1. And then in here, create your CSS folder, an image folder, and then start with a README file. Okay, so README files we've been creating, so hopefully you know how to do that. But basically, here's the basics. You just need to have headings, like a heading 1. And I'll show you what I want in here. You can do ordered list, right? You don't want to just have content without it having some kind of markup. This is true for HTML as well. Okay, so you're going to create a README file. So in that P1, to start with creating a README file. And inside there, use Markdown to describe the topic you selected for your site. Okay, and use a heading for this. So again, you saw me, I think, I don't even remember what week it was, talking about how I might use ChatGPT to create a site about some health metric, right? But I decided after thinking about it, and this is why I want you to really give this some thought, is like you start searching, like you just start going to chat and just start asking questions, right? Now you'll see me in some of my output today give you some, because part of my site that I'm creating is really to help students to write better prompts. But at this point, just start researching, kind of think of it like a search engine that you can talk to. You can ask follow-up questions to. I mentioned this already in one of them, but part of it is just learning how to get good content. And then sometimes it's like you start getting, it's like that, and then you start over with a new chat. That's okay. Or a new prompt series, because remember, these things are saved. Again, this is completely free. You don't have to pay for it. So now, in this README file, once you land on your topic, then write a complete paragraph that tells me why you selected this topic, right? And then also include prompts you used for some of the content, right, for the site. So prompts you used in some of the content. Doesn't have to be all of it, just some of it. What I really want to see here, and you can use outlines, right? So if you were looking at this Markdown, this might be a prompt, and then you might say, okay, here's the content that I found helpful to help you really organize the site, okay? And then come up with your text that will be your menu. Okay, so this is, again, just thinking about it. Like for me, I ended up I came up with why, start, and ethics, because home is your index file. So that's always going to be on your menu. So there are my 3 menu items. So for this step, just come up with what you think they will be. Okay, again, you can change them as you move through, then do a commit. Now create your index page, right? And now here's what is required. Is like a heading, main, nav, section, articles, right? So those semantic things that just give our page structure. And when you're doing that, keep in mind what we learned about using the outliner tool, right? And if you're not sure what creates them, right? Just play around, add some to your site and go in and look at the outlining tool to see. Now I'll have specific requirements for the index page and those menu pages, but for now I just want you to understand when I talk about this, that's what I'm talking about. So you also want to do, right, detail and summary, ordered, unordered list, and tables. Okay, and at least one, some of these. And then now, and actually I realize I duplicated this, but based on your content, have at least 3 of the following. So I'll move these 2 off of this list and put them here. Okay, so at least, detail, summary go together, time, mark, I used that several times, and address I used, right? And then you'll also want to, and I need to put that up here, is you also need a footer. I'll do that right now as I'm looking at the instructions. So not only do you need these, but you also need a footer. Okay, so in the footer, then give a link, right? So when you set up that page, then in the footer, give it a link to the AI tool you use for your content. Now, one thing I noticed as I was starting to lay out my content is I would modify some of the content I was getting, which is fine. As a matter of fact, if you look at my site, on my index page, I put content written in collaboration with CIT85FA23 and myself, because I did. I took it and I was like, oh, you know what? I want to change some of this. I didn't make major changes, but that's fine, right? And then what I meant is here at the footer, but I ended up doing it at the top, but also at the very footer at the bottom. You can see I put, my name, year, copyright, sitemap that I'll talk about in a minute, and most content was generated by ChatGPT, and then I gave a link to it. Okay. So now create anchor links on the pages, like maybe back to the top, links to internet sources, right? Remember, if you're linking off your site, to make sure you're opening in a new tab. That's that target equal underscore blank to do that. Okay, so I think an example for me was when I was here and I was giving my favorite YouTube videos, I'd open these in a new tab. That's one. I use it several ways. And also, in that case, right, create anchor links to sources, right, and then pages, like back to the top, or I think back to the top is really helpful. And I also linked within the page of another page into like my ethics page, right? So on this page where I had some content that says improve accuracy, I linked over to the ethics page that I have. Okay. So make sure you have some of that where it makes sense. Like, don't try to really make this a meaningful thing, not just like I am checking the boxes. It's part of what I'll look for in the output. So make sure you have headings, right? So in typical, we generally only use one H1. And this is what I was showing before with the HTML5 outliners. Have on the index page. On the index page, 5 or 6 layers, so levels. So here's what I mean by that. So if I come over here and I look, so there's my 6, right? That's underneath here, and then at least several more layers underneath a couple of these. Now this is the most you have to do for the index. The sub pages, which I'll talk about in a minute, are these menu pages. You can have a little less there, but for that main page, I want you to have several layers deep. And again, think about the content and how you would organize it. Okay, coming back here. So this is what I was saying, and each one, right, so 5 or 6 layers under your H1, and typically you only have one H1. You could have 2, it wouldn't be a big deal. There's some discussion back and forth, and it's more about search engines, but try not to have more than 2 of H1s. But for each of those sub-levels, right, have 1 or 2 sub-levels for each of the 5 or 6. Okay, make sure you have no untitled levels, right? So when you, and because that will definitely be something I look at here, is, make sure there's no untitled. And how do you do that? You make sure they have headings, like you're using some kind of H2, H3 or something. There's other ways to do it, but typically that's just the easier way. And if you're not sure how to make that, just play around. These are like, definitely include these. You can include them in different order. Or actually, article would be in there as well. And then look at the output to see what it looks like, right? Again, look at this. Now actually this is the outline of project 1. So in Canvas. Okay, coming back here now, we're still here. Right, so now update the metadata and title. Right, so for the index page, and I really recommend spending some time getting this index page set up correctly, right? Because once you have it set up, then you can kind of just copy for your subpages and then create that unique content. But I noticed even after I created it and I created my pages, I ended up updating that content as well, which is fine. But when you get that done, validate your code, right? And then commit that. And then now create your 3 pages that will be the pages for your menu. So for me, right, I came up with why, start, and ethics. So, and the names of the files should be lowercase. No, if you want some kind of 2 words there, then put a dash between them, but no spaces. So there's my start. Right, there's my ethics. Oh, I realize I do need images on all these. We'll talk about that in a minute. Right, but this menu is really, you'll have it on your index page, but it will link then to the 3 pages that you're creating here that will become your menu that will include a link back. Generally we call it to home, but it could be something else, right? Okay, so again, make sure you have these same basic semantic tags for each of your pages for your menu. Make sure there's 3 to 4 levels under the H1, at least 1 sub-level there. It should be 3 or 4, right? Metadata can be the same as the index, but the title needs to be unique. And then include a link back to the index from the menus. Like when you actually go to one of your, you always have a way the user can get back. You want to give the user a consistent navigation, okay? Okay, so now commit that. That is your menu pages created. Make sure it's all working. So now we're actually going to talk about how images you want to have an image for each page. Now, how are you going to create these images, right? I ended up using something that was honestly more fun than I thought, which I just went to Bing and .com/create. Now there are many different tools out there to use. Basically you can write a prompt to create that image, and again, more you learn how to write good prompts, the better content you'll get. So I said AI students, like students learning AI prompting in a virtual environment. Okay. Yeah, and thank you for helping me. There we go. Okay, so then you just create. Now what I noticed too is you can only create so many at one time. And I noticed the more I use it, the more credits it gave me. So you might just kind of jump in. Matter of fact, I'll probably mention this at the beginning of this week, just to give you that, the sooner you start playing around, the sooner you get these. So then you can look at these images. Now you are going to want to save these locally, give them good file names. Don't keep the file name that it's given. Give it a file name that actually represents what it is, so later when you're trying to find it, you'll remember. I've already shown you how to edit, right? So hopefully you have that part down. And you can see, like in mine, at my home, right? So here's an image that I found that I kind of liked. I also use FigCap, right? FigCaption to see where I got it from. You also want to use title, right? You want to use alt, you want to use lady loading, you want to use width and height. So just make sure you've done all those required things that we've learned about so far. And again, we'll style these moving forward, right? Give a reference to those. So each page needs to have at least one image on it at this point. Remember, we'll create more as we go. Part of this is just learning how to prompt. Now, Dave did mention that there were some sites that some free sources as well. You can check those out if you want as well. Because we're doing academic work, we have a little more leeway as far as Google Images, but I definitely recommend trying to create some of your own. I think it's just much more fun. Okay, so that will be commit images. Now create another page, and this is going to be site.html. Now we'll end up having two sections on this one. One will be for the color palette that we'll do next time. Just have it there. We're not going to do it for right now. And the second one will be once we fill out a couple more pages, this will be a page where all the links are, and I'll add certain things in here as we go through, but for now just create it so that you have it. Like here's mine. Matter of fact, it's linked also at the bottom on the footer. So there's my sitemap that, and now because I don't have anything beyond my menu, I just left it there. But the color palette is just a placeholder for later. Okay. Okay, so commit this valid, and for every step, make sure you validate, right? Your code, make sure it's validated. Sitemap. Now, by the way, make sure that your code is well formatted. So you definitely can lean into some of the stuff that we learned in the course, but if you're copying and pasting, really it's better just to write it yourself. But if you are, make sure, right, that when you're on pages that you're selecting all. I do this every time I write content to make sure my content is well formatted, because that's one of the things that I look for when I look at your code. Now, really important, and I know some of you got tripped up by this a little bit on the group work for week 2, but I really do not want you to add CSS, and if you do, I'm going to mark you off. So don't do it, because that's not the goal here. The step 1 is really all about content, pages, and images. Okay, that's really the focus on this one. Right? And now that you've gotten here, right, you can continue refining your pages, use commit messages that tell me, you know, the code that you modified. Now here's how I'll grade it. I'm going to grade it for how well you organize the content, right? Did you meet the requirements, and how well did you organize the content? Could I tell by looking at it you actually learned, you learned enough to organize your topic in the way that would make sense? I don't want to see things that aren't related. Like and again, if you find other sources for content, just make sure you're giving credit for them. Okay? Now, as I kind of review this, right, this step is honestly, because everything we do from this step forward is going to be styling all this content that we've created. Now we can still add more content as we go through. Matter of fact, we'll add like a form later on. I did add a table here as well, and I put required here, and I almost want to move table down to here, and so I might do that, and I do need to take these two off because I put them down here. And I'm just giving you, like, make sure you have a variety of content as far as what type it is and what type of structure you've put it in, so that once we start styling, right, that's part of what you're learning, is how to style these different structures that you've created, and which will make you, by the way, change some of those structures as you start to style them. That's very, very common. Okay, so the images thing, I've shown you how to use this. There are other tools out there. This one just seems so easy for me to use. I definitely played around. You can see this. I ended up doing for quite some time, even for our business, I ended up doing some images just because it was so fun and so simple. All right, now remember, before you submit this is really only submitting it to me. It's unlike the group work we've done where everybody's looking at it. It's only you and I, because remember, it's up in your private repo. You don't have to give me the URL. You're going to give me your commit history for this folder, right? This P1. Matter of fact, I'll specify that here so that you're clear about how you're submitting it. And the way I'll grade it is I pull your code into my system and I look at it, and based on the requirements and how well you organize the site. All right, hope this is fun. Talk to you later.